everyone. Welcome back. And thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren. And I'm joined today by Bree Kahn, Chief Experience Officer of Childfree Wealth, a life and financial planning firm dedicated to helping child-free and permanently childless people. She is also a child-free wealth specialist and the co-host of the Child-Free Wealth podcast. Child-free wealth has been featured on Fortune, Forbes, MarketWatch, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Business Insider, CNBC, and many other publications. In her free time, Bree loves hiking, running, and generally anything that involves being outside. Her core values are community, education, social participation, and sustainability. Thanks for joining me, Bree.
Thank you so much for having me today, Lauren.
Yeah, I'm excited. And our goal for today, Bree, is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a big part of adulting. So today, as we could probably tell by your bio, we're going to talk about child-free wealth. And I did want to ask, are more people choosing to remain child-free?
Yeah, there's definitely more people talking about being child-free and either deciding to not have children or delay having children. In my case, what we work with is we work with people who decide to never have children, whether that is by choice, not by choice. There's a variety of different reasons, but it's just deciding that you're not going to have kids.
I like this move towards child free from childless. I mean, I know we kind of use both, but I've kind of liked that idea because it's so much more abundance mindset sounding to me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is such a big discussion of do you use the word childless, but then does that mean that you tried to have kids and you couldn't have
Right.
kids?
Yep.
Or is it child free because you decided you didn't want to have kids? But then there's people who are like, well, saying, I decided I didn't want to have kids, but I also don't know. And they kind of like fall in the gray
Right.
area.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really hard to pick a term, but child free is definitely an abundance mindset term there.
I'm definitely in some kind of gray area there. I'm just keep getting older and keep not having kids, so it may turn out that way for me.
Yeah,
So when you're talking to your clients, what are their reasons for not having kids?
I don't know.
They
I
don't
don't
ever
know
say.
many of them. Some
Okay.
of them will say, some of them, just based off of where they come from when we're tracking like our referral sources, then you know that they joined a group and they were part of like a group that couldn't have children for whatever reason. But it's never something that we ask about. If they offer it, we'll listen, but I don't go and ask them.
I was curious if a lot of people were making those decisions for financial reasons or not.
It could be. I know you can go online and read different things and people will say they're making it because of financial decisions. But with our particular clients, I can't tell you the answer because I don't ever ask them. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious what they happened to say. So I wanted to ask this question too, and I get this argument from people a lot that there's like a moral obligation to society to have children. What do you think about that?
I think that is kind of like a silly thing to say. I think the only moral obligations that we have in life are to be kind, respectful people and care about others. Beyond that, it doesn't matter. Whatever that looks like for you, it doesn't matter. I don't think that there's any moral obligation to have children or to not have children. I'm not the creator and any sort of higher power universe, anything like that. So I don't have a particular opinion other than be kind, respectful people and be good to others.
Yep, I agree. I also get the selfish thing. Like I'm
Yeah.
selfish for not wanting to have kids. And I guess to some extent that's true, but I think sometimes the reasons people want to have kids can be very selfish reasons. Like, people keep telling me and my husband have kids because they'd have really pretty eyes. I'm like, that's a really weird reason for you to tell me to have children, you know? Like, would that make me selfish? I'm like, but they'd be so pretty. Weird, right? So, anyways, all right, enough about that. So, what are some of the differences in financial planning between having children and not having children?
Yeah. So the first question we'll often ask clients is, do you care about how much money you pass on when you die? Oftentimes the answer will be no, we don't care. So if you don't care about much money you pass on when you die, there are a lot of things that you can do differently in life. That's a lot of flexibility. And our clients, one thing for them is we make a plan, we start working on the plan, and then the plan changes. They say, nope, don't like that plan anymore. I'm going to do this instead. So there needs to be a lot of flexibility. And that also means that if they're not trying to build that big estate at the end, that flexibility is there because they can take different choices that maybe mean they're not growing wealth, the traditional wealth, as far as dollars, as fast as others, and that's okay.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense. That brings up this other question. Where are couples without children, where are they leaving their estates? How are they doing that? Is it like all other family members or charities or how? Because I mean, for the most part, people leave it to their kids, right?
Mhm.
So that's where this question's coming from.
Yeah. So many times our clients will aim to die with zero and spend down their wealth over time. And then anything remaining, they'll give to family members if they're around. Otherwise, they'll give to charity. It really just depends on the particular person. But there's not this big feeling of, oh, I need to leave something to a family member or to a friend or to a charity. And oftentimes, if people do want to leave money to charity at the end, we'll say, well, why not do some of that during your life? Because there are multiple reasons, both financial reasons, but also just seeing the impact of what you can do with a charity. It's so much more fun to see that impact than it would be to pass it on after you die and you're not able to see what you've done and how you help people.
That was the big takeaway I had in the book, Die with Zero. Was, I mean, one of the big takeaways is when to give money to your children. And that's the idea
Mhm.
too, there with like, let them, why don't you see them enjoy it and grow it and whatever, rather than get them getting it when they're 60 and you pass away or whatever. But same thing with charities and things. Do it while you're alive so you can see the impact that these things are having. And you can financially plan for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of our big things is we'll often work on gifting strategies with clients. And to me, it's so fun to do gifting strategies because there are a variety of things that you can do with that, whether it be creating some sort of like trust or just giving it away in the year, giving a donor advised fund. It's a lot of math and kind of nerdy stuff to do it, but it is super fun, and it's also really cool to see all the different charities that people choose to give to or all the different causes, and there are things that I never would've looked up on my own or really had any interest in looking at or even known about to look at, and then somebody brings it up, and I'm like, "Oh, that's such a good idea. Wow, I never thought of that." So it is a really, really fun conversation to have, and we often will build that into our plans. Usually, when clients are trying to die with zero, sometimes they can have a lot of resistance because they feel bad about spending money on themselves. So, one of the tricks we'll use is we'll say, okay, whatever you spend each year on your fun stuff, all like the extras in life, let's match that in your giving. And then usually they're able to go ahead and accomplish that giving and also spending more things on more things that bring them joy a lot easier.
I like that a lot. So it's not like we're not including like whatever they're spending on housing and food, for example, but like all their fun stuff. I love that. I love that. Can you I know you said some things are surprising to you, some of the causes. Can you think of any off the top of your head that are interesting?
Yeah, so there was one person, met with them, and they had lived in a variety of different areas. And many of them had Native American ties. And they said, we're not Native American, but we've lived there and we work in these communities and we want to give to these different communities. So that's what they did. And they would decided to give to every single one that they had lived over or lived in over their lifetime. And I thought that was so interesting and
Ah,
so
what a good
cool.
idea. I love that. And you
Yeah.
could do that, guys, whether you have kids or not. But
Mhm.
also, I would think when it comes to financial planning, when am speaking with people, and I just know this from having parents, and my sister's in college right now, not having to worry about the education fund. I mean, that must be such a different burden when you don't have kids versus when you do, you know?
Yeah, you're not putting away that money for somebody's college on down the road. In many cases, we do have people who will contribute something to like 529 for their nieces or nephews.
Right.
We have other people who just contribute to separate funds and then let it grow for their nieces and nephews in the future to either buy a house or do study abroad or do something sort of life experience trip. But it's not really that same feeling of obligation to do it as many parents have.
Understandably. So, what if your plans change and you decide to have kids or you like accidentally have a kid? Like, is that like a crazy detrimental thing that happens in your financial planning life?
It is, for our clients, no. Many of our clients get sterilized, and I do know that fact. Um, there are very few, like, details in which the whole reproductive in which I know about our clients, but I do know many choose to get sterilized or have looked at that option before. And we will say when we meet with people, if you are 100% sure that you're not going to have kids, then we're the right firm for you. Otherwise, if you're not sure yet, then go continue to live that standard life script and follow that plan until you're sure, because the plan definitely changes and it's easier to switch from that standard life plan to more of a child-free plan than it is to switch back. So it's really not, we haven't had any accidents. People always ask that question. There's never been any accident babies or accident children. Um, and yeah, it's pretty set in stone. And when they come to us and, you know, I've seen people who have said, yeah, I don't know. We just say, yep, come back to us whenever you've made a decision, if you've made the decision to remain child free. If not, there are plenty of other financial planners out there who are wonderful people and can help you as well.
Can you talk more about what the standard life approach is to personal finance that they should be
Mhm.
following until they make the decision not to have kids?
Yeah, absolutely. So standard life plan is often, you grow up, you go to college, you get a good job, you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, you build wealth, you retire, and then when you die, you pass that money on to the next generation. And it's really building what we think of as generational wealth and just doing all the kind of good boy, good girl routines where everybody congratulates you and says, yes, this is what you're supposed to be doing in life. And what many of us do because somebody else tells us we had to, not necessarily because what we chose to do that. So that's what that standard life script is.
What should people that have children do to support people that don't, other than ask them why they don't have kids or try to convince them to have kids?
Yeah. Yeah, of course that's number one. No, but actually one of the biggest things you can do is just not be judgmental or constantly trying to say, well, you need to have children because this and this and this. Like, no, that's not your decision to make for somebody else. And don't make the assumptions. One assumption that we see often is, well, you don't have kids, so you can take care of mom and dad, or you have money to do XYZ. Well, remember what I said in the beginning, if we're not working on building generational wealth, we have different choices. And that often means that sometimes that choice means that they're taking lower paying jobs that only are covering their necessities because they hated their job that was paying them a ton and giving them a bunch of extra things that they don't view as valuable or necessary in life. So that might not be true. And just because you don't have children doesn't mean that you have this abundance of time. Many people fill their time with a variety of things, whether that be volunteering, hobbies, or just enjoying life. So it's not this automatic free for all that many people assume. And I hear it online all the time of, well, you don't have kids, you have all this. And that's not necessarily true. It might be true, but it's not necessarily true. And being very conscious of those assumptions and trying to remember that just because you see it one way doesn't mean that that's true.
Yeah, that's interesting. The other day, someone gave my brother tickets to a sporting event
Mhm.
and they had offered them to me first for like $400, but they gave them to him. I think because like he has kids and I don't. And they're like, oh, Lauren could pay for
Um,
it, just like a little example like that.
that is, I would be irritated if somebody did that to me.
Oh my God, that stuff happens all the time. Yeah, but that's interesting. I didn't think about that side of it where the taking care of the parents, they're assuming you have the time and the money to do that. That is kind of fascinating. And now I'm
Mhm.
wondering what my future holds for me.
W-
Maybe I can
What
have the
we,
grandkids do it. I'll have my nieces and nephew take care of my parents. That's
there
perfect.
you go. There you go.
I do
One,
sometimes
like,
joke about that where I'm like, where will our money go? And I'm like, those nieces and nephew better be really nice to me. But that's
that's
probably the wrong
fair.
way to think about it.
No, there are so many, choices, and whatever choice you make isn't wrong or bad or anything like that. It's just the choice that's right for you. And with the parent thing, one thing that we see especially is many single women are often subject to being the one to take care of their parents, whether that be moving in with them, going and staying with them for a period of time, reducing their job responsibilities in order to help parents, all of these things. It's guess what? You can do this, and this is your responsibility now. And that's so unfair. That's just to make all those assumptions, and then it really it really puts such a burden on that individual because they don't get to do the things they want because they're constantly thinking about, okay, well, here's what mom and dad need and how can I take care of them?
So it seems to me that this is just pure anecdotal. I haven't read any studies or anything on this, but that fewer people are choosing to have children, or maybe are just feeling like they won't be shunned from society if they don't, or whatever it is. Do you think this is that like we're on like an upswing? Like, will more and more people choose to not have kids? Is this a trend, or what do you like? What do you think about the future of that?
Yeah, I'm sure that there will be more people in the future who choose not to have children. There's been some studies saying, Michigan says about 25% of the US is child free and doesn't have children. Pew did a study and the number was in like the 40s. We're saying people weren't going to have children, 40%. So it really is changing over time. It's hard to get a ton of data because or a ton of numbers right now, other than those few that we have from Michigan and Pew, just because there hasn't been a lot of research on it, working on it, and people are actively working to change that. But it hasn't been a ton of research over the years, and it's something that people didn't really talk about before. We've had clients who are retirement age, past retirement age, and had said, this is me and this is who I am, but I never knew the word child free and I didn't know that word. And frankly, I didn't know the word either for the longest time. And this is my job now. It's very when we call it the firm child free wealth, but to even find that term, yeah, we're the top ranked thing if you Google child free financial planning, but there are not many Googles for that every month. It's such a
Yeah.
small percentage because people don't know that term and know what to call it. I think it has been a lot more popular recently, and that's allowing people to pick and say, oh, yeah, that is me and kind of identify with it. But people didn't talk about it or even state that this was their preference. I think many of us have had the holiday conversations in which you go and someone says, well, when are you going to have kids now? Or you constantly getting that person to just ask. And not everybody was comfortable saying, I'm not having kids. So many people would just say, well, I don't know, it hasn't happened yet, or try to skirt the conversation because there was no good way to talk about it. And one that wasn't super accepted. And even now it's still hard to be accepted. You said you got the selfish thing, the question you asked earlier, and even the tickets that you were talking about. So I do think yes, less people are going to have children. I think many people didn't realize they had the option to have children. It
Yeah.
was not a
Yeah, I
you
think that's
have to
true.
have children. Yep.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. And I mean, if you're looking just from the female perspective, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that we couldn't vote, that we couldn't have a credit card, that we couldn't own property and some of those things, right? And so you almost had to be attached to a guy. And part of that deal sort of was, and you'll have kids for him and you'll take care of the kids, and that's your job, right? So it's until it really there's some underlying, I think, gender themes there as well.
Oh, absolutely. I grew up in a very conservative area, and that is still the case for many people that I know. It's you are expected to get married, to have children, and once you have children, your job is no longer whatever you studied to be. It is now you take care of the children. So absolutely, it's such a thing, but I think the tide is slowly changing.
Yeah, I agree. And then you are asking wider questions. At least I am, where what are we replacing ourselves in society? Is the population going to go down? Are we not creating enough new workers for, say, Social Security in the future? There's some of those questions as well that I think are just interesting, but I don't think that means that people should be forced or feel obligated to have children. I think it's just another problem that we should try to solve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Social Security thing, one of the questions I always ask myself is, okay, well, if if we replace the population to have people who pay into Social Security is such a small percentage anyway,
Yeah.
that does how much of a difference does that make? And it's not things that I can answer necessarily, but it's just questions I ponder
Yeah.
often and think about. But yeah, there are a lot of questions like that, and it's hard to know what that would look like. I think it would be one of my weird mind things is I would love to live in like two parallel universes at the same
Yes.
time and see how life turns out for both of them.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be interesting to see. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the Social Security, I mean, if you do financial planning right, Social Security is such a small part of it and it ends up
Hmm.
being nothing. If you do no financial planning, then it's everything. And that's the
Yeah.
tricky part with Social Security
Mhm.
specifically. So, Bree, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
This has been a fantastic conversation. If you guys want to learn more about it, we do have Dr. J, my colleague. He just wrote a new book. It's called The Childfree Guide to Life and Money, and it kind of walks through both, the life part and the finance part, so you can learn what that looks like. And it's a great read to just get a little bit of an idea. It's kind of if you took the book Die with Zero and The Simple Path to Wealth, and then blended them together and put a child-free spin on it.
Awesome. Love both of those. And I'll put your LinkedIn and the URL childfreewealth.com in the show notes as well. Guys, this is a very important conversation. And if you do have kids, but you want to talk about investing for your kids, you can listen to episode 142. But even if you have kids, normally I don't say anything at this point, but even if you have kids, guys, be nice to people that don't. Don't make assumptions about who they are, and please respect their choice to have a child-free life, just like they've, respected your decision to have kids, even though they may think that that's a wild idea, like I do. So, you can follow me on Twitter at Adulting is Easy, Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real, YouTube at Adulting is Easy. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Brie and I have made adulting a little easier for you.